Alright, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Now, this is a little bit different than I normally post, because usually I post gameplays and debuts and all that, but I kind of wanted to do an in-depth video on a certain team I've been following pretty much all season long. And recently they just got eliminated from the postseason, so I thought, what better time, to make a video on this than now. And the team we're going to be talking about is the 2021 San Diego Padres, also known as the most disappointing team in the year 2021 for Major League Baseball. So I'm going to go in depth on why everything just went wrong for the Padres in this video, and let's get right into it. Alright, so let's go back to the end of the 2020 season. The Dodgers beat the Rays in the World Series, captured their first World Series championship since 1988, and were the kings of baseball. One of the teams they beat to get to that position was the San Diego Padres, who broke out in a big way in 2020. Of course, the Padres were led by emerging superstar Fernando Tatis Jr. Manny Machado was heading into his second year on that mega deal that he signed in the offseason of 2019. And Dinelson Lamet, who had a very good 2020 season, his breakout year to be exact. And the pitching was really good too. We had Mike Clevenger, who got traded mid-season of 2020. You had Chris Paddock entering his second year. The offense, you had Grisham, Tatis, Machado, Hosmer. Mitch Moreland was on the squad. Rookie of the Year runner-up Jake Cronenworth was there as well. So their offense and their pitching was absolutely loaded. But, like I said, Clevenger would have to miss the entire 2021 season due to Tommy John surgery. So the Padres knew they had to act fast. And man, did they make some really big moves of that offseason and then some. So the Padres went out and they got three big names via trade in the offseason. The first one that we're going to be talking about here is Blake Snell. So Snell, he was the Rays ace. He pitched Game 6 of that World Series against LA. He pitched very well, but for some reason he got taken out because Kevin Cash decided, he allowed a base hit. And he had 73 pitches, and he took him out for some reason. That ended up costing them the season and the series against the Dodgers. But he was really good in Tampa. 2018 AL Cy Young, All-Star, great pitcher for them in the postseason. Snell was a really good pitcher, and he was coming off a really good 2020, especially in the postseason for him. So the next pitcher they went out and got was Yu Darvish from the Chicago Cubs. Darvish, who was having a great 2020 season. Second in the Cy Young voting, runner-up to known douchebag Trevor Bauer, who ended up signing with the Dodgers in that offseason. So the Dodgers got the NL Cy Young Award winner to join that stacked squad that already had Mookie and Cody and Kershaw, Muncy, Taylor, Pollock. Literally, they got the Cy Young Award winner. But anyways, Padres countered with that. And then the last move they made for a pitcher was Joe Musgrove, who, obviously grew up a Padres fan, went to the games. He was a world champion. He spent the last couple years in Pittsburgh with the Pirates. So that was the third pitcher that they got from a trade. And that was the last move they made, if I'm not mistaken, for a pitcher via trade. They did sign South Korean sensation Ha-Seong Kim in free agency. And with those moves that they made in that offseason, the Padres posed a big threat to the Dodgers entering the 2021 season for the National League West. And the LA-San Diego rivalry was just growing from there. Of course, the Padres weren't done yet. They signed their franchise cornerstone in Fernando Tatis Jr. to a massive deal, 14 years, $340 million. Put in the icing on the cake in an offseason where he was in commercials, and he was on the cover of MLB The Show 21, which ended up being, him being the youngest cover athlete in the game's history. So that's a really big accomplishment for Tatis. And now we begin the 2021 season for the San Diego Padres. And man, they came out of the gate strong as ever. Fernando Tatis Jr. was in MVP form, minus a little injury to, his shoulder. But he was fine. He was hitting dinger after dinger, mashing everything in sight, and was looking like the breakout player that we saw in 2020. And of course, they were starting to begin their rivalry, their series, with the Los Angeles Dodgers. And it was everything that a baseball fan was anticipating when, these two teams were going to get together for the first time. Back and forth blows, epic catches, epic endings to games, altercations, home runs, clutch hits, extra inning games. The fan interaction from both fan bases. Baseball's hottest and newest rivalry was gaining traction in a heartbeat. Dodgers took the first series in San Diego, and then the following weekend, the Padres took 3 or 4 from Los Angeles, which included Tatis playing a big role in that second series against the Dodgers, in which he hit 2 home runs off known douchebag Trevor Bauer the same day where his father hit 2 home runs against the Dodgers. And he was a key contributor in a 7-1 comeback against the Dodgers that was actually on Sunday Night Baseball. So pretty much everyone in the country got to see that happen and got to see baseball's hottest and newest rivalry on national television. But Tatis wasn't the only one with the big contributions for the Padres' strong start. You had Manny Machado, who had an excellent first half of the season where he hit 267 with an OPS of 833, which led to him getting an All-Star ballot for the first time since 2018 when he was a member for the Baltimore Orioles. Of course, you had Jake Cronenworth, who, like I said, was coming off a Rookie of the Year campaign where he finished second in the voting to Devin Williams. He had a 276 average, an OPS of 869, which also led to him being an All-Star. He had Trent Grisham, who got traded, like I said, to the Padres in 2020. He was having a solid first half as well, as he had 274, an OPS of 849, 11 home runs, 36 RBIs. So he, along with Tatis, Cronenworth, and Machado, were like huge contributors to the Padres' success early on. Now there's 2 more players that I want to talk about. Both were pitchers. Both are All-Stars for the Padres. Yu Darvish and Mark Melancon. So let's start off with Darvish. He was the trade piece that they got from the Cubs, like I mentioned, and he had an excellent first half. 7-3 record, ERA at 3.09, whip at 1,000, 125 strikeouts to 24 walks in the first half. So he was really good for the Padres, like a go-to starter for them. And the last one we're going to focus on here is Mark Melancon, who was their closer for the Padres, a 1-year deal with them. He was really good, 2.04 ERA for them, 2-1 record, 27 saves in the first half, led to him being an All-Star. So he was looking like the Mark Melancon that we saw in Pittsburgh and in Washington all those years ago. And things were just looking up for the Padres as they entered the All-Star break. They were thriving. They were right in the thick of it in terms of the NL West and the NL Wild Card. They were chasing the Dodgers, and they were chasing a very surprising Giants squad. So they had to not only deal with the Dodgers, but they had to deal with the Giants as well. And had one of the 2 wildcard spots at the time. So at worst, if they didn't win the West, they would at least be heading into the postseason, most likely against the Dodgers, in a 1-game playoff game at Dodger Stadium. And then we get to the trade deadline. And this is where the collapse started to unfold and started to show for the Padres. So they knew, the Padres, that they had to make some big moves at the deadline if they wanted to keep pace with the Giants and Dodgers in the NL West and keep teams like the Cardinals and Reds in check for that second wildcard spot. And that's what they did. They went out and got Adam Frazier first from the Pittsburgh Pirates, who was having a really good year in Pittsburgh, an All-Star that year, or for the Pirates in the first half, 330 on the year, an OPS of 860. He and Brian Reynolds were the 2 Pirate representatives in the Fall Classic in Colorado just a couple weeks earlier. And, questions started to pop up with, Jake Cronenworth already at second base. Were they going to put him in the outfield, for having to play? Of course, obviously, Trent Grisham was out with an injury at the time, so they put him in the outfield for that. And then the next couple moves that they made was that they got Daniel Hudson to help out that bullpen, and they got Jake Marisnick to help out team depth. But there was one big fish on the market that they were trying to go for. The one pitcher, the big pitcher, that if they got, it would put them over the top over everyone in baseball. And that big fish ended up being Max Scherzer. So Scherzer, he was one of the best pitchers in baseball the past decade. World Series champion, Cy Young Award winner, multiple-time All-Star, first ballot Hall of Famer when he retired. So he was out there, one of the best pitchers available for a trade. Teams like the Padres, the Giants, the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Blue Jays, the White Sox, the Astros, any contender that wasn't in the NL East was looking for the services of one Max Scherzer. And it looked like at first that the Padres were going to get him. Ken Rosenthal tweeted out that the Padres are nearing a deal with Max Scherzer, and this got the players and the Padres fans excited because they were going to add a big fish, one of the best pitchers in baseball, to join a staff that was already loaded with studs like Snell and Darvish and Musgrove, who had a big 2020. Chris Paddock, Max Scherzer, you add that 5. That's a 5 that can compete with anyone in baseball in the postseason. But it looked like after, nothing really much happened, and it turns out the deal never took place. But then something else happened. Just a couple hours later, Jeff Passan tweeted out that the Dodgers got him, Max Scherzer, and Trey Turner. And that was a huge gut punch to a team that had to watch their arch rival up north in Los Angeles not only pick up Max Scherzer, but they got Trey Turner, who was one of the most underrated players for like the past couple years and was having a very, very solid 2021 season where it ended up with him being an all-star. So that was an absolute gut punch to the Padres. So pretty much in a nutshell, they got caught with their pants down. And just when things just couldn't get any worse for the Padres, their superstar Fernando Tatis Jr. had some shoulder issues again and had to be put back on the IL. And then the team decides to make sure that he doesn't get hurt again. They put him in the outfield to make sure that the shoulder doesn't hurt even more. But it was just another block to fall in the collapse of the Padres, who in the final 2 months of the season, they literally lost 27 out of 38 games. So that's pretty much going 11-27 in your last 38 games. Notable losses to the Dodgers, where they got swept twice. They got swept by the Rockies. They got no hit by the Diamondbacks, pretty much the worst team in baseball, and a pitcher that was making his first ever start in the league. They got swept by a Cardinals team that literally took their spot in the NL wild card. They lost 2 series to the Giants, helping them clinch a playoff spot for the first time since 2016. And they lost a series to the Phillies, led by NL MVP candidate Bryce Harper, who was starting to put together his own season of MVP status right there, and was starting to put Tatis' MVP season in danger. So yeah, there was that. And not to mention, there was a dust-up between Tatis and Machado during that Cardinals series where things got heated between those two, with Manny telling him that, like, it's not effing about you. That was like the notable thing that came out from Machado's mouth, and it literally all culminated in an extra innings loss to the Atlanta Braves on September 25th that pretty much ended their season, as they were knocked out of playoff contention. And what was once a season that had promise and hype turned into an absolute disaster in a heartbeat in the last 2 months of the season. And it might end up with people losing their jobs as a result of this horrific collapse. The main players I'm talking about here are manager Jace Tingler and GM AJ Preller. So I do believe both of them will be fired at the end of the season. If they fire Tingler, I'm not really sure who they're going to get to replace Jace Tingler as the manager of the Padres. I know Bruce Bochy's name's popping up from here and there, but I think he's not going to come out of retirement. I just don't think that's going to happen. Now, AJ Preller, 100% he is gone by the end of this season, because literally, dude made all those moves in the offseason where he got Snell, and where he got Darvish, where he got Kim, where he got Musgrove. Yet, when it comes to trade deadline, all you get is Adam Frazier, who has been absolutely horrible for the Padres since arriving into town. Daniel Hudson, I don't think he's been good during his time there. And Jake Marisnick, who's pretty much there for team depth. When you saw what Max Scherzer has done for the Dodgers, what Chris Bryant's done for the Giants, what Trey Turner has done, pretty much the Giants and Dodgers got better while the Padres got worse. And this is not the first time that AJ Preller's done something like this. Let's go back to 2015. The Padres entering an offseason. So what did? They went out and they went big. They went balls deep. They literally got big names in that free agency. Matt Kemp, Craig Kimbrell, Will Myers, who's still on the team, James Shields, Justin Upton, Derek Norris, Will Middlebrooks. They got a whole bunch of great talent. So you would think that the Padres, with all those moves during that 2015 season, they made some noise, right? No, they did not make any noise. They literally bottomed out again, and they were stuck in the basement of the NL West for the next 5 years up until 2020. So it was really rough for them. Pretty much the names I mentioned pretty much were gone, like in the next couple of years. So like Matt Kemp, he got traded to the Braves. James Shields got traded to the White Sox. You did get Tatis though, so that's a consolation prize on that. Craig Kimbrell went to the Red Sox, won a World Series ring. Justin Upton went to the Tigers and then the Angels. Will Middlebrooks, I think he just fizzled out. Same thing with Derek Norris. And like pretty much all the guys that they signed in 2015, like the big moves, were out of the team in a couple years. So yeah, this is not the first time. Pretty much this season, the 2021 season for the Padres, was 2015 2.0. Only this time, it was much, much worse because of so much hype and so many expectations for them to not only be a playoff contender, not only challenge the Dodgers in the NL West, but maybe perhaps win their first World Series championship. But instead, they fizzled out. The Dodgers and Giants are the ones fighting over the NL West title instead of the Padres, who will now just sit at home and watch the postseason from the couch.